Everybody out there, this is Serato, and today for you guys, I am going to be profiling for you my Darklord deck. This is a deck I've been playing for the last couple of weeks. I was even playing it online before the set came out. I think Destiny Soldiers is where Darklords came out. I was even playtesting it before then, so I understood how the deck worked and everything. It's a very fun deck. It has very linear plays though, and it really doesn't rely on the normal summon. It heavily relies on the special summon. Also, I should mention the deck has insane draw power, as you'll see, and we'll talk about as I get into the deck profile. I didn't have to pay too much for the deck, luckily. My friend, who we already had worked out a deal of what cards I wanted and how much, he gave them to me for a very good price, so I didn't have to break the bank playing this deck. So I got very lucky on that, because I know like after YCS Anaheim, everything went up a little bit in the prices of Darklords, because everybody found out Ixtastag was short printed. But without further ado, guys, we'll get into the deck profile. The deck, even though it's very powerful, you have to get to your combo plays very quickly. The draw power in this deck is insane, however, and the search power in the deck. You pretty much have 8 draw cards. You have your 3 trade-in, your 3 Allure, your 3 Ixtastag, and you run Upstart Goblin, and Pod Desires, as well as you have 3 Rota Searchers in the deck that are literally Rotas that you can activate, once per turn. But we'll talk about how you can abuse that card later. But it's just ridiculous. However, the deck does brick, and sometimes it's very easy to out the boards. But if you get the combo plays going, if you get the hands that are good, which happens a lot, you're going to absolutely obliterate your opponent, and they're going to be able to do nothing. The deck always loves going first, unless you're going to game 2, then you would side deck cards in. So I'm just going to say that. And it's very easy to side deck with this deck once you know what to side in and out. So let's get into the deck profile now. I've taken up enough time. So first you run your most expensive card, most expensive Darklord card in the deck, 3 Ixtastag. Beautiful artwork on her. I mean, she looks gorgeous. I mean, there's not much more I can say. I love the artwork of her. I love the artwork in general, which is originally what got me into Darklords, and then when I learned the playing style of the deck, I just fell in love with it. But Ixtastag is really good. So you can pitch herself, and a Darklord card. So it doesn't have to be a Darklord monster. It can be Suburbia, it can be, your spells, it could be your traps like Dark Rebellion. It doesn't matter. You can pitch those, draw 2 cards. Her other effect, and also do keep in mind she has 29 booty. She has a big butt, because when you special summon her with Dark Contract, they can't run over her sometimes because of that big defense, which is really nice. But the other thing is, and this is something I'm just going to go over, because a lot of the Darklords have this effect. So Darklord Ixtastag has this. Darklord, how do you pronounce his name? Nadas, I always call him. Pretty much all the newer Darklords, I'm seeing if he has it, no. Nash has it too, and I think Darklord I cannot pronounce these words, Telezicapathic. I know he's based on, like, I think the Mexican demon or something like that, but this guy, which is pretty much like Gunir for Necros, has the same effect, where you can pretty much pay 1,000 life points on either player's turn and activate a spell, a Darklord spell or trap in your graveyard on either player's turn. Now you may say, well, it really helps you disrupt your opponent's plays and extend your combo plays with these cards in the deck, like Nash and Ixtastag, and the other, pretty much Nash and Ixtastag are the main ones you abuse this effect with. So a quick combo play you can do is with Suburbia, which we'll talk about in a second, but we'll get to Suburbia first. Suburbia is a pseudo monster reborn in the deck, and one of your biggest monster attacks that you can usually get out, which is 29 attack. So Suburbia states, when he is special summoned from the graveyard, you can reborn 1 fairy monster from your graveyard. Okay? Well, the deck is pretty much all fairies, but the main thing you want to reborn, except you can't bring back Morningstar, but you can bring back Archlord Christia. So if Archlord Christia is in the graveyard, you can bring it back with Darklord's Suburbia and pretty much lock your opponent out. But some of the combo plays you can do is, say, I'll just show you a quick combo here. Say I have just these randomly 3 cards in my hand right now. Okay, Ixistab, Dark Contract, which I'll talk about later, which is pretty much a monster reborn that you only can activate once per turn. And do keep this in mind because I learned this when I was playing the deck online and whatnot. But what you can do is you can go, okay, Ixistab, pitch with Ixistab Suburbia to the grave. All right. Activate the spell card. Bring out Suburbia. In defense position. Suburbia's effect kicks in. I bring back Darklord Ixistab. If I had a random other Darklord in the grave, like maybe Nash or something like that, I can activate again Darklord Contract in my grave, because I'll read you what Ixistab says, which is, this is important. Apply the target's effect. So when you're targeting the spell card in the graveyard, you're applying its effect, not the name, because it says only once per turn, but you're applying the effect, which means you can use the effect again to reborn another Darklord if it's engraved, and then it gets shuffled back into the deck. So that is why Suburbia is really good. He gets off your combo plays, and that's why things like Ixistab and Nash's effect, which we'll talk about in a bit, by paying that 1,000 life points, you can re-abuse cards, and it makes the deck hard to deck out too, I found, especially when you run Desires in the deck, which is really neat. But yeah, 3 Suburbias, you're pretty much Monster Reborn and your biggest beater in the deck. Next up, we run your 2 Nash, or Nastin, I think. I'm sorry guys if my pronunciation of these cards is annoying you, but they're hard to pronounce. Some people like running 3 of this card, and that's perfectly fine. He's a big beater. He helps you get out of clunky hands because you can send 2 of the Darklord cards in your hand to the graveyard, which is nice, to special summon him. Okay, so he's good for that respect. However, you can run him as a 1 of or 2 of. He is searchable, which is you draw him a lot. And I found 3 of got a little bit too clunky. I found that Ixistab and Suburbia were good 3 ofs to run. I mean, mandatory 3 ofs. These 3 were better. And Nash was like the 3rd best Darklord really in the deck. And he had a good effect, and he helped me get out of clunky hands and hands that just weren't doing anything. However, I wouldn't run him as more than a freaking 1 of, I guess you could say, or 2 of, excuse me. 3 got too cloggy. Maybe down the road I'll cut Morningstar out for a triple of this guy. But for right now, I like the 2 Nash. I mean, it's all you need. He has the same effect as Suburbia. Suburbia. Ixistab, where you can pay 1,000 life points on either player's turn, activate a spell or trap in the grave, which is really great. Also, do keep in mind that you can discard like 2 any Darklord cards in your hand, so spells, traps, monsters, whatever, to special summon him. So he does come in handy, but usually I find if I'm going to reborn anything, it's with Ixistab, because she has bigger defense, but that's just situational. Next, we would have is the next best Darklord, Darklord Animus. That's really good because it helps you recur things from your grave. Because his effect states, I'll read it for you. You can just discard this card and 1 Darklord card. Target 1 Darklord card in your graveyard, add it to your hand. So you can add pretty much all your spells and traps, all your monsters back, re-abuse Ixistab, if you don't have any more Ixistabs engraved and you have a clunky hand. It's really nice and useful. And plus he's your monster that you can tribute with 1 monster. He's like one of your other tribute monsters if you have to go down that route. But usually I use him for his effect, or as I just use him for fodder. He helps with clunky hands, so I do like him as a 2 of, because he helps recur things from the grave, especially when you're in the grind game. Next up for your 1 ofs, we have your 1 of Darklord monsters. We have Serato, and we also run Tezek. I'm not going to pronounce it. This card has the same effect as, I believe, let me make double sure. Yes, that you can pay 1,000 life points, activate a spell or trap in the graveyard. That's a Darklord spell or trap, that is. Also, he's a Gunnier in hand. So if you remember Gunniers and Necros, how you would pitch Gunnier to protect your Necros monsters, this guy's the same thing. Sometimes in game 2, I've actually sided a second one in if I know my opponent is running, Regekis and Dark Holes against me to out my board. Because the fact of the matter is I can just be like, okay, pitch all my Darklord monsters stay on the field. It comes in handy. Sometimes if I've made like a very powerful board, I'll activate Ixtastab with Nash's effect, and use the search one, which is banishment of the Darklords, which is your Rhoda for the deck pretty much, and then add him to my hand for extra protection. So after you do your combo play, search him for protection. You're usually good, and maybe have a strike in the back row. You're golden if you have a powerful board, and then you have a Darklord on the field. You have him in hand, and you have a strike set. You usually win. But very good card. Serato, he's a level 8, so you can use him with trade-in. Suburbia is a level 8, so you can use Suburbia as trade-in fodder too, if I didn't mention that already. So we have, I think, 1, 2, 3. I think we have 3, 4, 5. 5 targets for trade-in, which is pretty good. But Serato also has a good effect where you can nuke the field and things of that nature. It does come in handy sometimes, so I do like the one Serato. And this is my secret one from back in the day I've had forever. Very expensive. It's first edition too, near mint. I pulled this back in Dad Return format years and years ago. Next we have one Morningstar. If you can get Morningstar out first turn or second turn, you usually win the duel. He's a very, very, very good, powerful card. He does get clunky sometimes, so sometimes I'll just pitch him to the graveyard with Ixtab or banish him with Allure of Darkness. He's not. You don't have to run him in the deck. If you wanted to run a second Nastin, you could drop him for the third Nastin, but I like going for this guy. He's fun to play around with, but he's very useful. He's not clunky as a one-of sometimes. You can easily pitch him, use him as draw power, fodder. I mean, the list goes on and on. It sucks that you can't special summon him, but his effect, I'll read it to you guys, can't be special summoned, or it can only be tribute summoned. You can tribute summon this monster from your hand or top of the deck up to the number of effect monsters your opponent controls. While you control another Darklord monster, your opponent can't target this card by card effects, which is really nice. So he becomes kind of like a Towers, sort of. Once per turn, you can send the top card of your deck to the graveyard equal to the number of Darklord monsters on the field. And if you do, gain 500 life points for each Darklord monster sent to the graveyard by this effect. Is it Darklord monsters or Darklord cards? I forget that. Card. So it's card, not monster. So every card, Darklord card you send to the graveyard with his effect, you gain 500 life points. Which you won't think is a lot until you start finding yourself maybe re-abusing the effects a lot of paying 1,000. It does come in handy. So he's really good. He's pretty easy to get out in the deck. He sometimes is a problem as a clunky, he gets clunky, but like I said, you usually find him pitching him with the Ixtab, pitching him with the Allure in your hand. I mean, it doesn't matter really. I like him as a one-of in the deck, and he's very powerful if you get him out on the board and can protect him. Next, I run one Archlord Christia and 2 Vandy's Emptiness. Archlord Christia is another level 8 you can pitch with trade-in, and you can bring him back with Suburbia. He's amazing, and you have fairies in the deck, so you can even get him out easily. Vandy's Fiend is the main one I go for. Some people like running double Christia and 1 Vandy's Fiend. I like this ratio, because usually I'm going for the Vandy's Fiend, because too many Christia gets cloggy sometimes. Vandy's Fiend does too, but you can easily tribute for it. You can literally go Vandy's Fiend, tribute, have a Solemn Strike set, and if your opponent doesn't have an out, you usually just beat them down and win. I mean, hate to say it, but that's how it works. Next up, we run your 3 Darklord Contract, and by the way, the deck is more of a stun variation of Darklords. But you literally can get your Vandy's Fiend out very easily because you make so much monsters on the field. So if, say I bought Suburbia back with Dark Contract, and I bought another monster back, well then I sack the Suburbia with this, activate that monster's effect, bring another monster out. I mean, re-abuse effects, but yeah, you usually bring out the Vandy's Fiend more than the Archlord Christia I found. And the fact that Vandy's Fiend is a dark target, if you go in second, you could just banish it with Allure of Darkness. So that's the reason I like him over the 2 Archlord Christia. This is your pretty much Monster Reborn. Dark Contract. You can only activate 1 per turn. You bring a Darklord monster out from your graveyard in defense position. That's all it is. It's a Monster Reborn. For your other Monster Reborn-esque card, we do run 1 Soul Charge. Soul Charge is very crazy in this deck. If you have enough Darklord monsters in your grave, you just activate Soul Charge and make a very powerful board, and your opponent's just going to sit there and if they can't do anything, they usually lose. Very powerful in this deck. Next, you run your 3 Banishment of the Darklord. It's your Rhoda. You can search any Darklord card. I'm just making sure. Yeah, any card. So spell, trap, or monster. You can search out anything with this card pretty much in your deck. That's a Darklord. It's amazing. And you can re-abuse it by paying 1,000 life points with your Darklord monsters. And then putting it back in the deck and then adding more consistency and draw power to your deck. Amazing. 3 Allure of Darkness. This card's so good in the deck. Thank you, Konami, for bringing it back. Don't hit this card. Don't hit this card. I love Allure of Darkness at 3. It's so fun. It's like Rhoda when it was at 3. Please don't hit it. I'm scared. But with Zodiac's coming out, who knows? Maybe they won't hit it. But 3 Allure of Darkness. Very, very powerful card in the deck. You know what it does. Banish a dark target, draw 2 cards. Well, excuse me, draw 2 cards, then banish a dark target. My bad. Which does play a part in this deck. 3 trade-in, you have 5 targets, your 3 Suburbia, your 1 Archlord Christia, and your 1 Serato. Those are your 5 targets for trade-in. So it's usually always live. It's kind of like, I went with the ratio of 5 because in the Blue Eyes deck, I ran a ratio of 5 with 3 trade-in. So that's the reason why, because it's very consistent in that way. If you run 5 monsters and you run 3 trade-in, I've always found you're usually golden. So very good card. Next up, we run more draw power. 1 Pot of Desires, 1 Upstart Goblin. You only really need 1 Desires. 2, I would never use 2. I would never run 2 in the deck. It got way too weird. I had some times where I'm just like drawing Desires off Desires for some dang reason. I'm just like more than usual if I ran double Desires, but you only need 1 Desires, and I got this one for cheap from a friend. Like very, 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 very cheap. Like less than its over a quarter, 50% less its price right now probably. And 1 Upstart Goblin, more draw power for the deck. I would definitely, in my personal opinion, would not add another Desires for another. I would probably keep the Upstart Goblin in, not make this another Desires. But if you want to, go right ahead if that's the way you feel like it. But look at that draw power on the deck. Let's just show you quickly. Look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Consistency. And your 3 Ixtab. A quarter of your deck, over a quarter of your deck is draw and consistency cards. That tells you something. Next up for your spell cards, guys, we have our 2 Twin Twister. You can run Twin Twister, MST. Sometimes, depending upon which, if I'm going first or second, I'll take this out. Same thing with Morning Star. Sometimes I'll take it out. It just depends upon the side deck. You may be wondering, why am I not running Gamma Seal? I tried Gamma Seal in the deck, but I like using it as a side deck card instead of a main deck card because it just clunked so bad. It made my hands just like brick, and I'm like, how am I supposed to play? I got this Gamma Seal, and if they didn't make the board, I couldn't win. So Gamma Seal was useless. So Twin Twist just to clear back row so you can get your monster effects off. 2 Darklord Rebellion, very good card. You can activate from grave. And Dark Enchantment is like a mind control, which is amazing. That you only, it's really good. And this card's really good as well. Pretty much you destroy a card on the field by pitching a Darklord from the field. On the field, you tribute it, not tribute it, but send it, and then you can pitch one from your hand. Same thing with this. So mind control and destroying cards. 1 Eradicator, it's amazing. 1 Vanity's Emptiness. And the Solemn Strike Brigade, which is amazing in the deck. Then for the extra deck, you really never go into the extra deck, but the main thing you go into is Hope Harbinger, so you don't need an extra deck for this deck, really, except Hope Harbinger. Felgrand, Alcé, Heliopolis, for game with number 32, the Photon Galaxy Eyes engine, Dragosack for your level 7s, Red Eyes Metal Flare Dragon, Big Eye if you wanted to, Gustav Max, number 81 Super Dreadnought, and the 3 Spiders. 7 Sins, 84, 35. If you wanted to make them, but you would rarely make anything in this deck, in the extra deck, except Hope Harbinger. Hope Harbinger is your main extra deck monster. Everything else is extra. But I hope you guys all enjoyed this deck profile. I apologize, I hurried up there at the end. My camera's about to die. It's about to lose battery juice, so I wanted to hurry through this deck profile. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. Until next time, take care and have fun.